Hey there, entrepreneurs. My name is Sushant, and welcome to Trep Talks. This is the show where I interview successful e-commerce entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders, and ask them questions about their business story, and also dive deep into some of the strategies and tactics that they have used to start and grow their businesses. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Larry O'Connor to the show. Larry is the founder of Other World Computing. With more than 150 million in annual revenues, Other World Computing engineers, manufactures, and resells computer hardware and accessories, as well as creates leading-edge software applications that enable even greater functionality for the users. And I'm sure Larry is going to share a little bit more about exactly all the different products and services that he shares. And today I'm going to ask Larry a few questions about his entrepreneurial journey and some of the strategies and tactics that he has used to start and grow his business. So thank you so much for joining me today at Trep Talks. Really, really appreciate your time, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Hey, glad to be here.
So I did a little bit of research on you. I was reading on the internet, and I understand that it was really your father. He was an early adopter of technology, and that's how you kind of got into the tech world and got your start. Can you share a little bit about your story and how you got motivated to be in the tech world and how you really came with this idea of starting this business?
Sure. I mean, first off, my exposure to tech started with a telex machine and then a TRS-80, way back. It's late 70s, early 80s. As I said, my dad, was an early adopter of technology. I had the opportunity to have an Atari 400 XL that just talk about just a total fluke and maybe meant to be, but it was a door prize that they won, raffle ticket, drawing. And ultimately that's the first computer I had a cassette deck that you stored code on, but I learned how to program, I guess you could say certainly the basics, and enough where I even started programming on that TRS-80. This was stuff for my dad's business when I was pretty young, but that's where it all got started. And it's progressed, got my own system. And one of the challenges of the day was upgrading. It was expensive. You had to bring your computer into a store. And when I found out, number one, how easy it was to install chips and such, this didn't need to be done at a computer shop. Plus, there had been a earthquake in Asia, in the Taiwan region, affected semiconductor production, made memory prices go way up. Memory prices came back down, and saw this in the PC space, but in the Apple world, and I was an Apple user, everybody had held the same price points, and learned that it's the same chips that go on a Mac and a PC back in that day. Ultimately tested, did some installation and said, I'm gonna, number one, this is something I can sell to people for a much lower cost than they're being offered. Number two, and this was far more important, especially for me because I couldn't drive at the time, I'm going to explain to people, provide instruction support so they can do it themselves at home. You don't have to tear your system apart and give it up for a few days and pay somebody to install something that takes 5 minutes at home. And honestly, you call it somewhat of the inspiration for it. The guy at the local computer shop, every time came in, his feet were on the desk and reading whatever, at least reading a trade journal. Usually it took more time to fill out the paperwork to get the computer upgraded than it did to do it yourself. And once you had that figured out, I was like, this is not cool. They have somebody say, yeah, thanks for filling the paperwork out, see us in 3 days. That was the beginning. And then we got into hard drives. I say we, and that's something I think a lot of entrepreneurs do. At the time it was I, but you never want to say, I, when you're talking to a customer. We're an organization, we're a company. That's still to this day. But in any event, began to do upgrades, processor upgrades, got into software. We actually created the zip upgrade market, again, for Apple way back in the day. Got into FireWire storage, again, as a solution. With memory, it was, this should be more economical. It should be something that more people have access to and with an easier path versus what it takes to do service. Processor upgrades, again, extend the capabilities of existing systems without having to start over. Software, we actually brought out to allow people to run later OS versions after support had been ceased. We got into FireWire and actually storage in general, which is a huge part of our business today because the product that was in the market wasn't consistent. And at that time, customers who, we built storage for everybody. We had external drives that we sold from various brands. whether you're storing spreadsheets or producing music or video, same drives for all practical purposes. But the brands at the time were not building consistently. And we came in understanding what our customers needed and said, we're going to build a solution that especially audio and video guys can count on. It was a very straight up distinction that there's a chipset that needed to be selected and certain drives it had to be built with. And the problem was at that time, you could buy the same brand, three drives, same capacity, and have three different outcomes because it was flavor of the day in terms of what was inside. And we brought out a product that we didn't advertise, and this is important. I think it's important. We didn't come out and just use, fluff on our solutions. We provided real data, real application support, and told people what it would do and what it would work with, not what the interface said, not the fluffy stuff that made it look good, but then would let customers down, when they went to use it for production. But ultimately, everything that we brought out and the solutions we continue to bring out to market today are driven by our customers. We're here for our customers. We're here because we're our customers. We continue to move forward because we have their trust, their feedback, and they are who inspire us. We don't try to tell them what to do. We're listening to them so that while we may not necessarily do exactly what they ask, what they tell us, gives us the understanding of what problems need to be solved. And ultimately, we do what they ask because it's not about giving them a product. It's about giving them something that solves, their pain point, solves a problem that can be improved or eliminated.
Definitely. Do you feel that a big reason for your growth and success, or I mean, do you even feel fortunate that you kind of caught the early wave of computing, right? I mean, this is almost like the early days of computers, and you kind of got into it. You learned about hardware and started fixing and selling, and then the growth was kind of organic over time. What are your thoughts on how do you see your business today versus where you started in the early days of computing?
Well, certainly the things got more complicated and we moved up to higher levels. But in terms of the opportunity, I mean, that first question, there's always opportunity. And I would say that it was easier mostly because there wasn't a choice of being on the surface. I mean, you're in the guts of these things way back when. A lot of things today are more self-contained. You have to work. It's not so much that you have to work harder. You have to look harder to have opportunities to actually understand the inner workings and get under the hood. But there's still plenty of opportunity to do so. It's just different. And software is probably a much bigger opportunity today than hardware. It was even a decade ago. So there's always opportunities, just in different places. And certainly we continue to be very strong in hardware. Hardware it's easy, but it's not easy. Certain aspects, it's easy when you understand it, but there's a lot of stuff that's produced out there that's just not good. And it's because there's folks that understand how to put chipsets together or put a bunch of ports on something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the sauce is there for everything to interact correctly and actually deliver the experience and the use that somebody, or at least the optimal use that somebody should expect. There's definitely a difference, and that actually a lot of that comes in through the software that layers on in firmware, or on the actual system itself that completes the picture. There's plenty of things that look really good spec-wise and perform horribly. There's plenty of other products, solutions, and that's kind of where we focus, that deliver in real workflows that aren't necessarily trying to brag about this spec or that spec. Specs mean nothing if how to say you can't get your job done. And you can put a giant engine in a car with skinny tires and you spin the wheels in place. There needs to be a balance, and there's reasons that we don't do certain things. There's reasons we do all the things we do, and ultimately it's about providing the best working solution, not something that needs to be kicked all the time to keep it moving, or something that is going to let you down when you have a need in place. I may have missed you. I may have gone off topic a little bit there, but all the same.
Can you share a little bit about your business model? So, I mean, I usually talk to mostly e-commerce entrepreneurs, and I do see that your big part of your business is and you have multiple e-commerce sites, I saw. But of course, there's the other part of your business, which is more distribution through resellers and other distributors. And I believe your products are sold all over the world. Can you share, how do you see your business? Is most of your business primarily driven by e-commerce, or is it mostly products distributed through resellers and distributors?
It's been shifting more and more to channel. I mean, that's where we have the greatest opportunity, as we grow and really, gotta say, continue to scale. E-com, I mean, it's, potentially we could have had a much bigger e-commerce store today. We made a misstep a few years ago. To be very, very honest, we made a big pivot to the channel side when we, in a way that we shouldn't have. We ultimately, they say, you gotta listen to your gut, and you have to stick to your business plan, and do not let your customers, i.e. in this particular case for us, the channel, start being the one that's wagging the dog. And long term, I mean, it's a really good move for us, but we could have had a much better transition. Our e-commerce side, we started direct, and that was just, and at the time, memory, there were chips, we weren't manufacturing anything with memory. We did get into manufacturing when we went into processor upgrades and external drives and everything else, but still maintained a really strong direct brand. And it was the best place for us to control the message, have customers that understood what we were offering. It's a real different world when you go into the channel. I mean, there's brands, big brands that pay, if not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars to have shelf space, to have marketing positions. It's not a level playing field by any means. And certainly when you're direct, whether it's through Amazon, with a store on Amazon or on your own website, as long as you have the customer coming to your media, your information, you're able to give, a really great message. And ultimately, what happened with OWC, we built demand on a direct basis. And whereas in the beginning, nobody even wanted that, they weren't even interested in talking to us about our products. But as we built, a following and people understood what we were, the channel folks, I mean, the resellers, the retailers and such, ultimately come to us. And we have, that's a good relationship. And we, at the end of the day, especially if you're manufacturing something, you want maximum accessibility. It'd be a lot easier. And quite frankly, maybe it's even to a certain, it'd be a lot less complex, might even be more profitable today for us just to be a direct business. But long-term, the scale, you need channel partners. You really do need the channel with you. The other side of the equation is, our goal, our mission is to see everybody benefit from our solutions. And accessibility, is very difficult to maintain and provide if, you're trying to do it all. The channel, you need to have your product in front of people. And if the channel's not selling your product, they're only going to see your competition. It becomes a lot harder to get that saturation. And there's all sorts of flashes in the pans. I know with TikTok and YouTube stuff and all that and Instagram, but those mostly typically end up being flashes in the pan. I mean, it's a long-term grind to build a brand and to build a solution and build a customer following. And core to that, absolutely core to that, is making sure you put the customer first, you're honest with your customers, and you absolutely focus on, the customer service side and the quality of what you're producing.
Definitely. I mean, I think for electronics and especially computer hardware, I think quality definitely matters a lot. And these days, given that there's so much competition and so many different brands, and also so many kind of electronics that come out of China, low price, but still do a pretty decent job.
You may think so. I'm not to interrupt, but one thing I will say about today's technology, a lot of people really don't even know what they're missing when they buy some of the cheap stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. I guess you could say it works good enough, but they're relative to what they're paying, they're not getting anything near what they should be getting. And unfortunately, folks will accept or believe that because the specs look similar, maybe it's a port thing, that they're getting the same thing, but they're not getting anywhere near the same thing. And that's, one thing that we get, customers that do, again, that's where you establish, you have that direct customer, connection. Customers, our own customers would come back to us and they bought some of this other stuff, even stuff that you can buy in, how to say, the big box stores, from other brands. It's, it's cheaper, whatever. I needed it. When you have, it's like anything else. If you've gone to a restaurant where you really like a dish and then it's, same dish someplace else should be the same and same whatever. When you experience when you experience what you like and works well, and then you do try something that's not up to that level, it's very easy to distinguish. But a lot of folks don't get that opportunity. They buy one thing, and maybe they continue to buy it. Maybe it's something that doesn't last very long. Maybe it's a product that fails after 6 months or a year, and it's acceptable. Must just be how it is. It's there anyway. Sorry to interrupt on that, but there's a lot of competition for sure, but it's not equal competition. The biggest, we manufacture batteries for at this point just for Mac laptops, which is become a very crowded space on Amazon. We were the first company in the U.S. Back in 2001 to bring out a full line for Apple. We've been doing this for 2 decades. The batteries that we put to market are full capacity, tested, they fit right, come with the right tools, all that good stuff. It's amazing how many batteries come out of Amazon that whether they don't fit right, they don't come with the right tools. There's a myriad of other issues, but the biggest thing that you got to watch out for, I say this does happen. There's batteries that claim X capacity, and this happens with. You can't get. There's companies doing this with flash drives, and it's laughable because they sell a 10 terabyte drive that they call flash. You plug it in, it's got 512 megabytes, or even 5 megabytes. Some little tiny storage cell doesn't do anything. It's faked. But on batteries, there's plenty of batteries in the market, and you can tell by weight that have been programmed to report. Maybe they're reporting 8,000 milliamp hours, as a laptop cell, and their actual the actual cell capacity was inside the battery might be a half or a third or a quarter of that. So it reports to a capacity, but you don't get the runtime that you thought you paid for. So again, I always say in any business, if you're out there, we've always competed with hard drives in commodity spaces, but our customers, they're willing to pay a little bit more because we're giving them a professional grade product that's going to last. And if you're going to come into a space that, a lot easier come into a space that's not been commoditized, but in any space, it's a matter of making sure that you can differentiate yourselves with quality, because there's always going to be copycats, and there's probably going to be these things that are just not there. But customers that buy your solution will understand why they're paying an extra, might be 5 or 10%, difference, which is very small, but they're getting a lot for that 5 or 10%.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. As a user of electronics myself, I've used both the cheap stuff and I've used the brands that I recognize, and there's it's not difficult to notice the difference. And then once something works and it's reliable and it continues to work for years after year, then it's like you're okay with paying a little bit extra and getting the quality and knowing that it's going to be reliable. So I totally agree with you. In terms of manufacturing, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'd add to that. And this is from whatever service you're going to provide, whether it's a service or a product, consider the value of your customer's time. And and that's something that it's certainly if you're saving them time, or it's a matter of just from reliability point of view. The less time they're, and I actually say this all the time in different, even when we're talking about our own product introductions and how our solutions are used in workflows. Our stuff is used in pretty crazy stuff, really exciting stuff in my opinion. But to the point, we want to be the boring stuff, and by boring, they install us. Our product is in their workflow, and it's doing what it needs to do. It's been plugged in, it's there, and they don't have to think about it because their focus is on, whatever endeavor is in front of them, whether it's managing people, doing a major edit, whatever the work is, our stuff just needs to be in the background. And for any customer, if a good solution is something that saves them time and does not take extra time, while they're actually trying to do the work they need to do. It's people learn, a lot of customers learn, a lot of people learn. I learn myself. You can save a few pennies here, and then you just get killed with additional time and headache. When you could have spent a little bit more and had something that would have kept your time focused where it's most productive.
Definitely. Can you share a little bit about your product development processes? I mean, you're manufacturing, introducing new products, that are, that are good quality products. Do you have teams internally or R&D department that's kind of working on different ideas, different products, and creating that prototype, and then you're getting it manufactured? Can you share a little bit about that process and where are these products manufactured?
Sure, we currently manufacture in parts of Asia as well as in Mexico, and we do a lot of final manufacturing, light manufacturing assembly, actually in Woodstock, Illinois. So historically, product development has been done in the U.S. We have an engineering team also now in Taiwan. Software is actually spread across several states in the U.S. We need to be near Apple for some of our software. So we have Northern California development. We have actually a hardware and software team in Burbank. We have a team in, of all places, Iowa. I mean, it's different things through acquisition and just it has to. I mean, one other thing about any company. I mean, way back when I started OWC, one of my dreams was to own our own fab lines and such, and be able to manufacture ultimately at that time memory, and later would have been SSDs. Something that I didn't really consider and didn't pay attention to. Illinois used to be a place that had a lot of that kind of SMT manufacturing going on. And unfortunately, because of just mismanagement of the state and regulation things that changed over a couple of decades, by the time I was interested in doing it and was ready, this is kind of our next step. We could have done it. It would have been difficult with the rigs at the time, but manageable. But the people that we needed were no longer in the state. They moved elsewhere because the state had become, well, for lack of a better term, hostile to business. And without employees, without the resources you need, it's very hard to support and expand and scale the product. Even if you got it all, down pat, you still need a team around you to scale. So selecting where you're going to do business, really should also take a look at what the demographics are for the kind of people resources, which is, that's absolutely key and king in that in any kind of startup, I believe. And that's why we have people where we have them. There's different pockets of just native high quantities of just native intelligence in different areas that we find in different parts of the country and the world. But for development at this point, all the QC, all the final, some of it's still done, and some of it's duplicated in Taiwan, but the vast majority of the final QC, the final testing, and the majority of product development happens right at our headquarters in Woodstock. And that was a lot harder 30 years ago, but it's today. We have a pretty mature team that we brought up over the years. Woodstock, Illinois, by no means a technology center, when OWC was started. And I think
so
go on. Sorry.
Does that mean that you have different offices all over the US, like where you have different team, or are these just like distributed teams that are working remotely and collaborating with each other?
No, they're offices. In the case of software, we do have a lot of remote team members. That for different parts of the organization. A lot of our IS is done internally, but that's an example of a team that's at this point primarily remote. But for software development, for actual application side, while there is a little bit remote there, our teams, it was interesting. During COVID, everything went remote. But in particular, first our Iowa team, then our Mill Valley team, they started coming in voluntarily. They wanted to start getting together in early 2021 and began doing so before we started the mandate and bring up. In-person collaboration is king. I know there's, there are companies that are started from the get-go that built on a remote model that's officeless, and that's a very different culture and a very different engagement. We were never that way, and I'm not saying that it can't be done, but our own teams, when they started to come back together, realized just how much better their productivity was being able to bounce off each other versus be remote. And they started coming in before anybody else was even being asked to come in. They were one of the groups that suddenly said, we're not just going to come in, once a month or once a week. We're going to be back in full time because we just develop much quicker, being able to having all our resources together in the same room.
Definitely. I think you mentioned briefly, of course, software is probably a much lucrative and much profitable business than hardware. Do you ever think about, I'm sure you think about think about it all the time, but do you think that that the opportunity of your company could, or do you want it to shift towards software more and more rather than hardware, or hardware is still kind of your passion that you want to always have? But purely from a business perspective, does it make sense to have a complete, a business that's completely software focused, or is your software really there to support the functioning of hardware?
Well, we go back if we go back 10, even as recent as 10, 12 years ago, software played a much smaller role in hardware. And honestly, I mean, where the technology was, I mean, hardware, there's still a lot to differentiate in pure hardware. Today, the software that we've developed, across all the platforms, Mac and PC software, what drives our Jellyfish and Jupyter systems, Mac Drive, which is cross compatibility. These front end Energize, which enables perfect example is our media card. We got into media cards, SD cards, and CF Express cards because it's in our backyard. I mean, SSDs and NAND flash is something we have more than a decade, almost a decade and a half of experience with. Moving into camera space for video recording and photography, very easy for us to do. And there's a lot of brands in that space, a lot of stuff in that space. Having said that, our Atlas cards by themselves there's nobody who's building better cards than us today. I mean, there's cards that, we're on an equal or better footing than anybody else. We brought out the best cards into the market possible. We brought out media readers, and our media readers, by the way, are absolutely best. In fact, we outperform and out feature competition. We have better solutions in our competition for reading these cards. And again, we're relatively new in this space, but what brings, by themselves, if you're buying a camera card or buying a media reader, there's every reason in the world to take those buyer solutions. You bring our Energize software into the picture, and suddenly that's entirely elevated. Energize takes advantage of code that we have on our media cards. Nobody else did this. A lot of media cards, they go bad because they literally get dirty. And it's not physically dirty, it's electronically dirty. And you've reached a point where the camera will err on the card and it doesn't work. We brought out an ecosystem that allows you to, number one, always know the health status of your card with a click. So it gives you health status. And usually even cards that stop working, it's not because they've run out of write cycles, it's because, again, they become dirty. The other thing our Energize software allows are firmware updates. Nobody else is doing firmware updates like we're doing now with the cards. A new camera comes out that requires some sort of change. Now you can update the cards you have. You don't have to find out, when the company has shipped a new card with that new, capability. So your cards can work with any camera you've got. But the big cool thing about Energize is, rather than having cards go to waste, every time you use Sanitize with Energize, and again, these are things that we put under our cards. Our cards, these are features that, we've added to our media cards that are all software driven. I'm spending way too much detail on this, but it's pretty. Look, 3 months ago, I have to say, this is, brought in somebody who was at Alexa that helped develop this area. I didn't have a lot of full understanding of, really the ramifications. I thought this is great stuff, but when understood and saw what was happening, what was missing and all the other options out there, it was a huge differentiator. It was going to be a differentiator, but it's beyond, it's beyond insane. These cards don't have to be consumable. And again, the company from the get-go has had a lot of, for over 35 years, has looked at things from not using the term sustainability, but effectively, looking at, it's waste not, want not, it's maximize resources. Let's see things go the furthest they can. And Energize, every time you use Sanitize, restores a card to its factory original performance. Cards slow down over time, whether you've had the card and whether you've been using the card for a day, a month, 5 years. Number one, you can check now there's plenty of health status available. And number two, you can restore that card at any time to its original full factory performance, its original fresh performance. And it takes 2 seconds with our software. So that little piece of the ecosystem suddenly elevates both our readers and our cards. You have to have a reader enabled to pass the commands, which nobody else. does. And you have to have cards that are able to allow firmware updates, allow the this particular sanitize function, and also allow and engage with health check. So we've provided, again, a great reader, great cars that, again, by themselves are absolutely top notch against anybody you put us against. But you bring in the software, which we put out for free for our customers, and now you have it has elevated the hardware, well above anybody else that's out there. Software today drives everything. Our external storage solutions, what gives them an advantage is software. We've invested a lot over the last decade to bring software out for Mac and for Windows and continue to enhance its capabilities. Mac Drive is a piece of software that lets us go between Mac and PC, without having to worry about how the drive is formatted. There's lots more. Copy that ingest. I mean, software, you can't have good hardware today without having good software. And in terms of pivoting just to software, I look at something like Jellyfish. All of our solutions are very software driven, but it's got to be on the right hardware. Software and Mac Drive, you can buy for anybody's solutions. In fact, we get a lot of customers. We're happy to support other people's hardware. One other thing we've done is we have not locked people that are being forced to using our enclosures to take advantage of applications like software aid. That being said, we certainly believe and strive to give them a better solution. We have a lower total cost of ownership. We're building a product to last. Usually, what happens is somebody buys a hardware rate, which costs a lot more. They don't work all that great. They cliff in terms of performance. They have other limitations. Software they break the hardware rate. Software in many cases gives them better performance in addition to just better drive safety and drive monitoring. And then the next solution will be an OWC solution. But we're willing to sell the software separately. It's not very expensive, relatively speaking, because we know we have great hardware. And we want to give people the opportunity to use our software and technology any place they can. But ultimately, those that buy our solutions, I don't like ecosystems where you're forced into an ecosystem, and once you're in, you're kind of locked in. We want our customers to buy our solutions because they trust us, not because we've stuck them in at point A and now we kind of brought them down the road and we can start to get away with whatever we want. That's number one. We wouldn't operate that way to begin with. But number two, we trust our customers. Our customers need to trust us. It keeps us really focused on always having those best solutions. There's just no other way.
For sure. So, I mean, to me, it seems like there is a lot going on behind the scenes, in terms of software and the functionality and things like that. For the average consumer who probably does not understand, or may not even care about all these details, I think this probably just translates into when they plug in the hardware, and set it up. It's kind of a seamless functionality, and they don't have to worry about anything else. How do you? I guess it really comes down to product marketing. How do you make sure that all these features and details that are in the product can be translated in some sort of easy terms to the end customer? Like, is there some sort of partnership between you and the channel partners where you provide that education to them so that they can explain these details to the consumer in some way? I mean, I'm also thinking about these days, like if I want to buy a certain new hardware, I mean, I'm not that deep into IT. What I'd usually do, I would go to YouTube and I'll search, what's the best X or Y, and I see the reviews, and I trust the people who are doing the reviews, and then I'll go and make the purchase decision based on that. What is that like? I did see on your website, like there was like a feature for iJustine. Do you have a strategy for where online influencers are talking about your products, trying to explain the value proposition, or in terms of product marketing, like how do you translate these features into something that the average consumer can understand?
Sure, we do a lot of videos that show our products, explain the solutions, and ultimately, I mean, I've gone into probably more detail than I need to go through here. I mean, the big thing we try to make clear is what the value proposition is. We're offering a competitively priced product, especially because of, if you're looking at storage solutions, we provide a better performing solution at a substantially better cost point than our competition. And that helps alone. And then having the media available to explain the technology, show the speeds and feats, but more importantly, show how this is going to work in somebody's workflow. Confirm it works. I mean, it's 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was a lot easier, honestly. We had magazines we could advertise in, there were good reviews. I mean, it was a very different thing today. Today, it's difficult because you go online and you Google and you got, we're up against, I mean, our competition loves today because they can go pay somebody to review their product and buy that space and buy the rankings and effectively promote. And I mean, you see a lot of stuff that is paid to be where it is. And we've primarily remained organic. We get involved with projects where we have ambassadors that use our solutions. It's word of mouth, and we still attend trade shows, and we do work with our partners, our channel partners, to make sure that the product is elevated in the scene. And one thing that it takes a while. I mean, again, when you're going up against companies much larger than your own that are entrenched with some of these channel guys, it does take a while. But as you grow, as people demand the product, they also kind of see the writing on the wall. They want you to be partners with them as well. I mean, it's a better solution for their customers. I mean, the best channel partners you have are people who actually want to make sure their customers are getting the best solution, and that helps accelerate things as well. Because the alternative is, Amazon is a great channel, in addition to your own to go through. And we actually do. Amazon today is one of our largest channels, and again, that's another place where we can control the message, control seeing our product put up against our competition. And channel guys that they don't want to play ball, I mean, they're going to miss out, is what it really comes down to, because folks do go to Amazon for more and more of their stuff. And even if they don't buy it on Amazon, being seen on Amazon opens that door. And the biggest thing is, again, take care of the customer. And it's tough. And make sure that your competition is not seeding negative on you as well, because that tactic is also not, unfortunately, uncommon.
So to me, it seems like your business is very heavy on channel. Do you actually do any a lot of like online advertising? Do you have a huge budget for that, or is it really the funnel is really somebody who's looking for this kind of a product, they're going to do some research and they're going to go to their local hardware store and going to buy it?
Yeah, most of it's online. I mean, we make sure, and again, outside of, I should be very clear, Amazon is our largest indirect channel. Direct is still our largest channel, but again, over the course of time, we expect to see that while that continues to grow, other channel, avenues are far more important for our long-term growth. And as far as advertising and marketing, having good media, you can pay for SEO. A lot of our ads are certainly the paid search advertising. I mean, that just is what it is today. But information and having good media online and actually being able to answer questions, we do a lot of our work is actually in educational. We've been educational as an organization since we started, and providing your customers good, objective information, sometimes not even about something they can buy from you, is actually a really good means to bringing people in and earning trust. I mean, showing everything. I mean, even again, include other solutions that aren't yours, and if it's part of a solution workflow that or in your space that you're engaged with. If you don't have a solution, don't be afraid to say, hey, we have all this great stuff here, but hey, this is what we recommend over there, and it's great for SEO. I mean, that's organic. I mean, the best thing you do is have good organic information, or good information rather, that gets organically indexed that people can find and come to your site, because it's tough online. You do a search, there's a million ads, there's a million videos. Having good media that is objective and explains and gives people good answers, it takes time. I mean, you have to build trust, you have to build traffic, you have to build a good solution, and ultimately, working with. You have something that's really exciting and giving it to an influencer to check out. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Just be aware that you're up against a lot of people that are there's a lot of paid promotion out there. Even the worst thing is being up on Amazon against paid. We have never and will never engage in tactics that that artificially inflate they say different status and ratings and such. But once again, you're up against a lot of companies that do that. I mean, you see companies with no name whatsoever all of a sudden have a zillion reviews. How that happened? What the heck is this thing? It's pretty insane.
Definitely.
Just stay the course. I mean, the big thing is just stay the course and work hard. If you have a good solution,
yeah,
it's harder. I think it's much harder today than it was, a decade ago to communicate, get a message through to potential customers. And I think people are a lot more, they a lot more less informed today as well. Depending upon what it is, there's more of the information that's put out there is superficial versus, really in some of the details that used to be common knowledge. But ultimately, you build a better product. People who are buying the alternative solutions out there, they do encounter issues. Understand what issues are being encountered with the products you're competing against, so that you own the results when somebody's searching related to that problem, and they find your solution, your product, by that inquiry.
as a CEO of a $200 million company, what is your, I mean, can you share your evolution as a business person, as CEO? How has your role changed over the year, as you've grown the company, and at this stage, what are the things that you focus on? Because of course, one person, you only have certain hours in the day. What is your biggest focus and impact that you bring to the business?
I still actually have a substantial influence and involvement in our engineering and design area. I mean, that's you find where you have vision, and all you continue to apply it. But mentoring is very, very important. Business development, acquisition. There's you really. I mean, like in the beginning, I did everything, and even up until probably 15, 16 years ago, I found myself doing just about everything. And as a transition, I mean, the biggest thing is learning how to delegate, learning how to trust people, and also remembering you made mistakes along the ways. They're going to make mistakes as well. Having good guardrails in place to minimize the damage from mistakes is a positive thing. But we learn by doing, and it's very important over time to give more and more people the opportunity within an organization. If you're going to scale, you have to give people the opportunity to grow and scale with you, so that you continue to move on to those bigger levels. Have more time to focus on, on the engineering, on the strategizing, what the roadmap should be, what the solution should be, and business strategy in terms of maybe it is time to make acquisitions, maybe it's time for other things to happen. But I mean, the evolution really goes from one man band to a team, and ultimately people are your customers are absolutely critical, and the people that are supporting you and your customers. I mean, there is no organization without the team that's around you. I mean, that's an absolute. Doesn't matter how brilliant you might think you are, how great your ideas are, how much you can get done all by yourself. Nothing gets done. I mean, it's certainly past a certain scale if you don't have a good team around you, and never forget that team. Somebody mentioned the founder's dilemma. OWC for the first time is finally moved. I mean, we're 35 years old, but as we move into our next stage, is going to start supporting option program as such for our employees. Haven't had that up to this point, and not because of any reluctance to do so, but mainly along the lines of it was started as a subchapter S. It's it wasn't structured. I mean, this was not a company that we didn't have outside capital. This was a bootstrapped, self-funded organization, still is today. And as such, I mean, it just wasn't structured for that. Moving into that structure, but just hypothetically, I sold the company, last year, 5 years, or whatever. I absolutely would have taken care of my people. I have no obligation to. No founder does. But it's just, don't forget that the people around you at all levels. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, whether it's an engineer, or it's somebody in sales, or it's somebody sweeping the floors, keeping the lights on. Without all those team members, your organization does not function. I mean, whoever you hire for whatever roles, it doesn't matter how. Every role is important, and that's something else. Definitely stay humble and be respectful of everybody in the organization that you build.
Definitely. As someone who's still very involved in engineering side of things in your business, how do you keep up to date with the latest things in technology, the latest trends. And of course, the big one right now is artificial intelligence. You know, AI getting into computer hardware, and then, in the future, who knows, the hardware starts taking over the world. What, 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 what are your thoughts on this? And are you utilizing any sort of AI technologies in your business, as a productivity tool, or even in the software that you're creating?
Sure. Well, first off, stay immersed. I mean, honestly, and stay immersed, and that's with your customers and with technology. I mean, we're always engaged in brainstorming and looking at, hey, what's next, and what problems, really, what solutions are next. I mean, understand what's coming, so you understand what problems are going to be there to solve, and understand the customer's current problem today and what it's going to become tomorrow in terms of that development. AI, we're not using AI in our software just yet. That may come to be. I mean, that's AI has all sorts of applications that we certainly see within the organization. Of course, we're already dabbling with AI. AI as a productivity tool is really, really impressive. I don't believe it replaces people. It certainly gives people the opportunity to have a lot greater output. I mean, as a goal for any organization, shouldn't be you should be looking to reduce heads. You should be looking to multiply and exponentialize what you have and grow faster because of new resources and technologies that enable such.
Definitely. In every entrepreneur's journey, there's always mistakes made, failures, lessons learned. Of course, you've been running your business for 35 years. I'm sure there's no shortage of mistakes. But throughout your journey, what has been like one or two big um, lessons that you've learned from any big failures or mistakes that happened, or really just any general big lessons that you can share with other entrepreneurs?
Sure. When the company was a lot smaller, it's really easy to have good intentions, but not be able to execute on those intentions. Never make promises that are going to be difficult to keep. You want to also, as another side of the equation, you don't want to necessarily, under promise, but it's always good to be able to leave yourself in a position to over deliver. One thing that we'll never forget, this is when we first started getting ratings on our company. And we were competing against companies there's companies that don't deliver on time, have all sorts of problems. And we saw ourselves getting reviews in some cases for an on-time delivery that was lower than the score that some of these competitors were getting. And what it came down to was when they delivered on time, or even near on time, might be a day late instead of 2 weeks late. It was expected. I mean, people expect certain things, so they get kudos for doing better than was expected. And we always maintain very high standards. I mean, we have no package left behind. The order comes in, we're same day ship, all that good stuff. But we found when we were promising the exact date of delivery, and Amazon may have changed that. And there's other applications of this, but it was really interesting to see that we get a 7 or 8 out of 10 for always delivering right on time. As soon as we added a little bit of buffer in there where we could beat, we had a little bit earlier official cutoff, and we had the opportunity to beat what we were promising. All of a sudden, they were 10s. We weren't delivering any faster, but suddenly we were at least provide something better. When people expect you to be a certain way, again, you become your own average, I guess, which is, in some respects, is really a positive thing, because it's not that the customer didn't think that you did a good job, but you're being judged by new customers based on how you rank with others. So it's controlling the messaging is super important. And the other aspect, watch out for fraud. Fraud can sneak up all over the place, and make sure you have good controls in place, whether it's internal or external, to prevent fraud. I mean, it's credit card fraud in particular. Just about put this company out of business a couple decades ago. We responded by developing software internally to screen and effectively predict good versus fraudulent orders. But that came out of nowhere. We went from zero fraud to all of a sudden we had become a target, I suppose, and it was something that could have put us under. And then the last kind of piece that goes along with that, and we've been good. This is not so much a mistake that we made. We've not made this mistake. Do not let your worst customer, drive the policies that you apply to all your customers. There's that 0.1% that, there's nothing you can do right for them. and they will take advantage of you in every way, shape, or form that they can because they feel entitled, whatever it might be. And that's a very small percentage of, I think, human beings in general that you come in contact with. But to learn lessons from that element that you will come into contact with, and then apply that to the rest of your customers, doesn't work. Find better ways to screen for that 0.1 and 0.1%. Know that there's a cost of doing business, regardless. And make sure you have policies that's like anything else. I mean, treat your neighbor like you'd want to be treated, and that absolutely goes with customers. There's a two-way street. You don't want to have policies that encourage people to effectively, well, for lack of a better term, I mean, really truly fraudulently take advantage of policies that are there for the greater good, but don't have policies that overly restrict or put too much burden on your best customers, on the majority of your customers, the majority of people you're going to come in contact with.
Definitely, those are really great lessons. Now we're going to move on to our rapid fire segment. In this segment, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions, and you have to answer them maybe in one word or a sentence or so. So, one book recommendation for entrepreneurs.
Lead Like Jesus. It's a book that I normally don't read books, but this was one that was recommended to me, and it was shocking. I shouldn't say shocking. It really was. It was highly enlightening and absolutely things that we have been doing. Naturally, it enhanced, and it was a great way to look at how you interact with people and why. Lead Like Jesus. Leave it like that.
Cool. An innovative product or idea in the current e-commerce, retail, or tech landscape that you are excited about?
It's supposed to be one of our products or somebody else's product?
It could be anything, any product or idea.
Any product or idea.
Yeah.
Where do I mean, it's, well, honestly, I mean, the most innovative thing that everybody is addressing and dealing and whether it's coping with or what I say, taking advantage of, is certainly the chat GPT type AIs that have now flooded out there. That's changing everything, and that's going to certainly allow us in certain areas to accelerate, if nothing else, improve and accelerate how we communicate and potentially develop and design product.
Definitely. A business or productivity tool or a productivity tip recommendation.
Don't the productivity. Do not overload. Do not try to focus on one thing at a time, and don't let what's coming next create anxiety for what you're on right now. I mean, you're going to get it done, but it's like anything else. I mean, you have if you're eating a meal, I mean, you take it. It's one bite at a time. Take it one bite at a time. Don't necessarily think about having to consume everything in one chunk, and then it's all done.
Final question. Best business advice you ever received or you would give to other entrepreneurs?
Best business advice. Huh. That is a tougher one.
Very broad question.
It is a very broad question. This is one I would have probably should have looked at before our interview to give a thought to. I mean, it's everything is so ongoing, but one thing for sure. And originally, this company was in Woodstock, Illinois. By no means a tech mecca at all. And the advice that certainly got me, and this is well into the development, was to take a look at other regions, take a look at other workforces in other locations. Understand that that the universe that you exist in is really not any large part of the universe, and do explore, understand your needs, and take a look at opportunities that aren't necessarily just in the location that you happen to be in. And that was a huge part of growing OWC, actually opening in other locations and recognizing that there's different talents. There's talented people all over the world, and there's certain different places where you're going to get different talents. And today that's probably easier than ever, since we're such an online remote group. But all the same, be open to what's new. Don't think that you know everything, and don't think that be aware that your backyard is not the same as everybody's backyard.
Definitely. Well, we are on time. I would love to continue asking you questions. It's been such a insightful conversation, but I definitely want to thank you so much again for your time. It's been great pleasure speaking with you, getting to know a little bit about your story and also how you have grown your business to such a big business. So, Larry, thank you again so much for your time today, for sharing your story, and for joining me today at Trip Talks.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. And hopefully it's some good insight.
Thank you.